3 days after the funeral, Caroline handed a small brass key and an envelope containing a single handwritten line from her grandmother. "Take care of Leo. He knows where I hid the rest." Caroline was 34 years old, recently laid off, and had not spoken to her grandmother in almost 4 years. Because of a family argument, she now wished she could take back every single day. Leo, it turned out, was a 3-year-old Golden British Shorthair with green eyes the color of sea glass and a way of staring at Caroline like he was waiting for her to catch up. What that cat did the first night inside that empty old house, slowly leading Caroline up 2 flights of stairs and stopping in front of a locked attic door, would change not only Caroline's life, but the way her entire family would remember her grandmother forever. Caroline Walsh had not set foot inside her grandmother Ruth's house in Providence, Rhode Island, since a bad Thanksgiving argument 3 years and 11 months earlier. It had been a small argument about a big thing. Caroline had gotten up from the dinner table, grabbed her coat, and walked out the front door, convinced she would come back once everyone had calmed down. Her grandmother Ruth died on a Tuesday in October, 87 years old, alone in her bed, without ever hearing Caroline apologize. Caroline was 34. She had been laid off from her marketing job in Boston 6 weeks earlier. She was behind on 2 credit card payments, and when the family lawyer called her to say that her grandmother Ruth had named her in the will, Caroline had actually laughed out loud into the phone. The lawyer, a calm older man named Mr. Henderson, did not laugh with her. He just said quietly, "Your grandmother left very specific instructions. I think you should come to Providence." 3 days after the funeral, Caroline sat across from Mr. Henderson in his small wood-paneled office on Angel Street. He slid a manila envelope across the desk. Inside was a small brass skeleton key on a ribbon, a folded slip of paper in Ruth's shaky handwriting, and a photograph of a plump golden cat sitting regally on Ruth's green velvet armchair like a tiny king. The handwritten note said only this: "Take care of Leo. He knows where I hid the rest." Caroline drove to the old house on Benefit Street that same afternoon. She had not been inside in almost 4 years, and the moment she opened the front door, the smell hit her before anything else. Cedar, old books, and the faint lavender of the sachets her grandmother had tucked into every drawer in the house for as long as Caroline could remember. And sitting in the middle of the entry hallway, perfectly composed, tail curled neatly around his small golden paws, was Leo. He was exactly what she expected, and somehow completely not. He was a British Shorthair, maybe 11 pounds, with a round plush coat the color of burnt honey and eyes the color of sea glass. He did not run to her, he did not run away, he simply stood up, took 3 slow steps forward, looked directly up at Caroline, and sat down again, as if she had been expected for a very long time and had finally arrived. The woman from Ruth's neighborhood who had been feeding Leo for the past 5 days, a retired librarian named Mrs. Patterson, met Caroline in the kitchen. She explained that Ruth and Leo had been inseparable for the past 3 years. Ruth had adopted him from a local breeder the same week Ruth's second cataract surgery had failed. He had, Mrs. Patterson said quietly, been the only living thing Ruth talked to every single day, including the days when nobody from the family called. Caroline felt her face get hot. She thanked Mrs. Patterson, she locked the front door after she left, and then she sat down on her grandmother's staircase and cried for the first time since the funeral. Leo sat on the step beside her the entire time. "I see you are still watching, but you have not tapped that subscribe button, and honestly, that stings a little. One tap. What comes next is exactly why I needed to tell this story." That evening, after Caroline had made herself a sandwich she could not finish, she opened her grandmother's note again. "Take care of Leo. He knows where I hid the rest." She looked at Leo. Leo was already staring at her. He stood up from his cushion beside the radiator. He walked slowly toward the hallway. He stopped in the doorway, turned, and waited. Caroline followed him. Down the hallway, past the kitchen, up the main staircase to the second floor, past 3 closed bedroom doors, to the narrow set of wooden stairs at the end of the hall that led up to the attic door Caroline had not seen opened since she was 9 years old. Leo sat in front of the attic door and looked up at her. Caroline pulled the brass skeleton key out of her pocket with fingers that did not feel like her own. She climbed the narrow stairs, she slid the key into the old lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. The attic smelled like cedar and old paper. A single bulb on a pole chain lit up the low slanted space, and Caroline saw boxes, a dress form, a stack of old Life magazines, and, in the very far corner, beneath a faded blue quilt, a large leather trunk with Ruth's initials stamped in gold on the top. Leo walked directly to the trunk. He sat down beside it and waited. Caroline opened the trunk. Inside were letters. Hundreds of them, folded neatly, tied in small bundles with brown ribbon. The oldest ones dated back to 1956, love letters between Ruth and Caroline's grandfather, who had died long before Caroline was born. Letters Ruth had written to her own mother during the war. Letters from Caroline's mother, who had died of cancer when Caroline was only 16. And at the very bottom of the trunk, in a separate cream-colored envelope, 47 letters addressed to Caroline, one for every birthday Ruth had missed since she was born. Every single one of them sealed, every single one of them unopened. There was a small velvet pouch next to the letters. Inside was Ruth's engagement ring, her mother's wedding ring, and a handwritten note in Ruth's shaky hand that read simply, "For Caroline, when she is ready to know who she comes from." Caroline sat in the attic for almost 2 hours, reading letter after letter by the single dim bulb. Leo sat in her lap the entire time, never once getting up. When she finally climbed down the attic stairs at almost 1 in the morning, holding 3 of the letters to her chest and crying quietly, Leo walked directly behind her, close enough that his small shoulder kept brushing against her ankle. She did not sleep in the guest bedroom that night. She climbed into her grandmother's bed. Leo climbed up beside her, curled into the curve of her neck, and did not move until morning. Some stories arrive exactly when you need them. This is one of those. Caroline called her father the next morning. She read him 3 of the letters over the phone. He sat in silence for almost a full minute. Then he said, "Come home, kid, and bring the cat." Caroline sold her Boston apartment 6 months later. She moved back into her grandmother's house on Benefit Street. She started a small editing business working from Ruth's old writing desk in the front parlor. And every single morning at 6:15, Leo walks into the kitchen, sits in the same patch of sunlight where Ruth used to sit, and waits for Caroline to pour him a small dish of warm milk. 47 birthdays of letters, a brass key, a skeleton lock, and a Golden British Shorthair who knew exactly where his grandmother had hidden everything that had ever mattered. Leo is 5 now. Caroline is 36. The letters are all read. The ring is on her hand, and the argument that she regretted for almost 4 years, she finally understands was never really an argument at all. So tell me honestly, do you think a cat can actually know the things that matter most? Or do we just follow them because deep down we already do? Let me know in the comments.